I guess my favorite time would be when my dad helped me learn how to ride a two-wheel bike. And he took me up on top of we lived on the side of a hill, and he took me up at the top where there was a school, and he didn't have training wheels on the bike, but he just told me to get on the bike and just use my feet, and I did. And then from then on, and of course, as you can remember, my dad owned a bicycle shop for a long time and then expanded it. But that's probably my favorite memory with my dad. But I love my dad. He was my hero. That's an interesting question because basically I was a loner child until I was 8, and then my sister came along. But as far as lessons, my mother used to say I was the perfect child. Well, I know I wasn't, but I don't think I gave my parents much grief about anything. And they supported everything I did, including when I was 12, became a baton twirler and skater and did dance classes and bowling. And I just feel like, I guess the lessons I learned maybe is that I loved any kind of activity, sports or dancing or music. And I guess probably the greatest lesson would be when my dad made me take piano lessons. And I hated practice. I just hated it. And he'd make me get up at 6 in the morning, and he'd go back to bed. And then if I played a wrong note, he'd say, "No, that's B flat." And so, but he said, if you learn to play the piano, it will open doors everywhere you go, because people love musicians and love people who can play the piano. And you know the basic, what happened with that. I mean, the joys of my life were all in music, except I love my little babies. The fact that Sharon was the oldest of my 4, and I had to have her grow up because I needed help. And my favorite memory of her is she helped bring me the diapers, bring me the bottles, and basically, I guess that's my favorite memory of her. She really helped me and didn't complain. And we took several trips from Medicine Hat to Sugar City, and she'd be there with the little basket of food and hand out all the food to the kids. And she was so good about it. She just knew that she had to be the big sister, and she was. But that has to be one of my favorite memories of her.
Child.
Janae was more difficult and demanding, and she was very jealous. Sharon was jealous of Janae, and I guess the favorite memory would be when Janae would stick her foot out of the crib, Sharon would go over and bite her foot. And but when Janae was, gosh, maybe 1 or 2, we lived in Pocatello with Grandma Martin, and Grandma Martin always spoiled Janae. I think Janae was Grandma Martin's favorite. And I guess my memories of Janae was, you know, where there were 4, she just kind of blended in.
Child.
Okay, Grant, as a child, was just, to me, a good little boy, although I knew that he had that sparkle in his eye that he's thinking, okay, what can I do to torture my brother? But he was good. And the one thing that you probably heard this story, when your granddad would go to church, he would be the teacher, and I'd say to him, okay, you have to look after Grant, because I was looking after the other ones. They were too young to go into the nursery. But Grant would sit on the front bench and just look up at his dad while his dad gave the lessons. And people would say to me after, how did you get him to do that? And it wasn't that hard. I think that your granddad would just set Grant down, and he just sat there until your granddad finished doing his lesson to the adults. just amazing when I think back on that. Brett was my happy child, and always in the morning, if I were still in bed or in the bathroom, he'd always come and he'd give me a big smile and he'd say, "I love you, Mom." But he was definitely my happy child, my happy baby. But when Brett was born in Medicine Hat, I prayed to Heavenly Father and I just said, "You have to give me a child that's going to be easy for me." And that's what he became. Without question, Brett was my happy child. I think the thing I loved most about raising my children was the fact that I had to keep them content until your grandfather got home from law school at night. And so we'd gather around the piano and we'd go through all the songs in the little primary children sing. And when it was Christmas, we'd do Christmas. But I think the most rewarding time for me with my kids was having them sit with me at the piano and them singing. And they were so good, they loved it. And so to me that was, again, a gift from Heavenly Father to help me figure out how to keep these kids content, because I wanted them to see their dad before they went to sleep. So I guess that would be my favorite time with them. To have patience and love unconditionally, no matter what they did. And I think that my kids all felt that I loved them. But I was strict. And of course, so was your granddad. And I wouldn't let the kids run around and scream and holler. They were very well behaved. And I think the greatest lesson is that they respected what I was doing.
Grandpa.
When I met your grandfather, I was engaged to be married on August 24th, and I think I met your grandfather. I just graduated from high school, and he had been in the hospital with pneumonia, and I went to the Mormon church to Sunday school, and he ended up being the Sunday school teacher. And I just looked at his beautiful blue eyes, and he was such a dynamic teacher. I guess I fell in love. And then when he expressed an interest in me, and I was going to be marrying a dairy farmer, he said, "You need to wait till I get off my mission." But it's like, I feel like I fell in love with him almost the first time I saw him. I think learning to be a good spouse is a lifelong learning experience. And I think that learning to have tolerance and patience and understanding of your spouse, and then expressing love. And the one thing I think I've told all of you is that you should pray together often, because I think prayer keeps you in tune with each other. And I feel like you can keep the goals and ambitions that you have in life together. So I'd say that, to me, loving and understanding and patience with the spouse. To know that music was the core of my being, that I loved playing the piano, I loved having my children sing, and of course they sang a lot together when they were small and did musical programs. And music was the core of my father's soul, and I feel like he passed that on to me. And some of the best times of my life were through music, singing in the Tabernacle Choir, being an assistant conductor to J. Welch, where I conducted concerts in the Tabernacle, in Symphony Hall, up at the university, and then in Las Vegas. Those opportunities were all through music, and I loved them. And my years in the Tabernacle Choir were educational, and I feel like while I was in music, I felt like I was always learning and wanting to do better and more, no matter what I was doing. And J. Welch, when I was conducting for him, told me I had more music in my little finger than most people have in their whole body. and he told me that I should continue on with my education so I could teach conducting. He had a lot of faith in me, but I studied with every conductor that I could, wherever I lived, and took courses, and I felt like I was on a learning curve. Of course, even now, I still play piano duets, and I love music, and of course, I just think that if they want to remember me for anything, it's the music that I had, and hope instilled in them, the music that I love so much, and I hope that's what they think about.
Apps.
That I love them with all my heart, and I just know that there's a life beyond where we are now, and I know that families will be together forever, and I guess that's what I want them to remember, the love that I have for all of my children and grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren.